Hey everybody, it's Pax. Today we're doing something a little different from what I normally do on the channel, but I guess, in a way, pretty similar. It's been nearly 10 years since I began playing living card games. I started out with Android Netrunner. I got into Warhammer 40k Conquest and Doomtown Reloaded. And then since its release in 2016, I've been playing Arkham Horror the card game fairly consistently, as you probably know if you watch the channel. And getting into a new LCG is always really rewarding and novel. It brings these really interesting new experiences and quite a bit of a sense of wonder and an excitement for the future. And today, we're going to be taking a look at the Earthborne Rangers game from Earthborne Games. This was kickstarted in the summer of 2021, and I received my copy about a week ago. And I've been struggling trying to get my setup to work here on the table. I don't have a TTS mod for it, so I won't be playing it on Tabletop Simulator. And I just assume not, because, like I said, it's a brand new game, and we've got that kind of sense of wonder to grapple with. Playing it on the old Tabletop Simulator interface would probably result in a bit less exciting of an experience, I think. So, Earthborne Rangers takes place in a distant future after humanity has been faced with a looming climate crisis. They managed to pull everything together and use all of their existing resources to pile everything, all of their efforts into major terraforming projects, bioengineering projects, and they set a plan in motion that would take, a couple thousand years independent of human interaction to heal the Earth. They retreat into underground arcologies to live in for generations and upon generations. And then they emerge into the world reborn, looking slightly different than it was, with a lot of history behind them. So now humanity lives in much smaller communities, spread out, slightly lower technology. But still kind of like, I think I don't want to compare it to Warhammer just because of how ridiculous Warhammer is, but I think that there's a bit of a sense of like lost understanding of why technologies work to a certain extent. And the game begins with the player taking the role of a ranger, and the rangers are a group of individuals in the world that have the skills and training in traversing the world and are tasked with the stewardship of the land and its inhabitants. Anyways, I had tried to do an unboxing video. It didn't come together, but let's go through the things in the box that are super interesting to me. So first off, the box art is beautiful. It's really nice. It's quite a substantial box. I'm gonna go grab Scarlet Keys from the side here, and it's kind of tough to tell because I'm laying them on top of one another. But Scarlet Keys is like, I don't know, a little bit shorter and a little bit wider. And just the tiniest bit not as tall. My finger kind of, it's about the height of my finger in height. So it's a pretty nice size box. And it also came packaged with this really nice kind of latticed paper instead of plastic packaging, which is nice because part of the objective of the game for them was to have the game be produced in a more sustainable fashion. And while they didn't hit all of their targets, I understand most of the components in this game are produced from heavily recycled materials and more sustainable materials. So moving past that, it was sealed with a sticker here, which you do have to cut with a knife. And I've already unpackaged everything, so I'm not going to tip it over and show you. But I'll just open it up. There was a sticker here, and they say that if you don't cut this, it has a chance of ripping the side of the game a little bit. So I did cut those with an X-Acto knife, and voila, here we are. You get the Lure of the Valley campaign guide. Nice 30-day campaign in this open world, because it is an open world game, and it's got a whole lot of information. This is 55 pages of open world exploration with a main quest line and a prologue that lets you kind of walk through deck selection. But I'm going to be doing my own deck building because I played the demo ahead of time, and I have a pretty good idea of the kind of character I want to play. And to me, this game has a bit more of a role-playing aspect than Arkham does, it's a little bit more forgiving. It's a little bit less face to the grindstone on the difficulty level. And so I'm going to be spending a lot of time reading flavor text, fully reading out the abilities that I'm using and stuff like that, because almost all the abilities have a bit of flavor built into them. There is a rule book here. I understand there's a number of errata that are published on the website, but I don't think it's so extensive that I'm too worried about running into anything major. But I am going to keep it open kind of on a screen off my computer's over that way. And I'm going to keep it open, maximized, and if I need to go reference some rules, I will. But some nice icons, some absolutely beautiful art in here. These are all the different aspects of your character, of your personality. You've got all these different types of characters that you can play as, and the book here actually lists all of the cards in a kind of slightly different format, so that as you're building your guy, you can look at what they have holistically. But this explains everything fairly well. It's not a particularly complex game. It's definitely comparable to Arkham in complexity, but you're certainly not going to be fumbling over it the way that you might with some really heavy stuff. And last but not least, before we get into the insert in the cards, is this beautiful map of the valley. Now, I'm going to put this sideways, and I know that that's not the greatest way to present it on the screen because of the way the camera is oriented, but you can see that they've got this absolutely beautiful area. I believe you start up at Lone Tree Station or somewhere around there, maybe the Ancestors Grove, and the world is just open from there. You can go through grasslands and forests, and the way that you build your encounter deck like you do in Arkham is you take a combination of the path that you're taking to get to a new location and anything specific to that location. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I'm going to take one more refresher on the rules before I actually sit down and play, because it's been a couple months since I tried it out. But overall, it's a really, really big world. And then down on the lower half, there's quite a lot more swamps and ravines. I think these are technically slightly more difficult areas to get through. I only played through the woods and the lakeshore, I think. I did one traversal through a mountain pass, and I found it to be quite tricky. Some of the things that show up in those places are a little difficult to deal with. But the really neat thing is that all of those places, they kind of have this ecosystem, and maybe I'll get into that in a few minutes. But you obviously, it came with some punch sheets. There's some really nice tokens for this game. I think the look of them is really quite nice. You've got your progress tokens, your general use tokens, and your injury tokens. And progress goes on location. Injuries, progress can go on beings as well, but progress goes on beings and locations, and injuries only goes on beings, I think. And then the uses are just for general uses. And then you've got your energy tokens, which indicate how much kind of resources you have to play cards or to do tests. And then you've got your little ranger token, which I'm pretty sure where I'm playing in solo play, this is not going to be super useful, because the primary purpose of it is to, well, I shouldn't say the primary purpose. The primary purpose is whatever the card is that is asking you to put this on. That's the purpose. But while you have this on a card, all other Rangers get +1 to their tests against that card. So not super useful in solo play, but we'll get into that. It came with this nice insert, and it actually has these kind of removable boxes. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think I put these together correctly because they're all fucked up. But regardless, they have the divide. Came with a whole bunch of different dividers. You'll see I have a deck built right there, and we're actually going to go through my deck before the end of this video just to kind of explain what's going on with it. You've got some reference cards with lists of the common tests you can take, much like Arkham and Netrunner. There's some basic things that you can always do. The backs of the cards are absolutely beautiful on player cards. The templating on the cards, I'm a huge fan of. This is just an injury that if you get knocked out, you have to add this to your deck, and you just need to deal with it at a later time. But I'm absolutely in love with the art direction. You've got your personality cards, which are just a description of what type of character you are with different icons matching the different skill tests. I believe they're called challenges in this game, which, I mean, I'm going to struggle with the terminology a little bit as I'm just getting into it. And then each of these different dividers here has different classes, and each class has different cards you can take. And so this is, I believe, the Forager, who gets all these things dealing with flora, you know, dealing a damage to a flora to explore a trail, stuff like that. A nice carbon forged trowel. I don't think I've ever said that word out loud. Some tea kits, nature's abundance, eating some food, a sifter for gathering berries. All this neat kind of stuff that plays into that idea of what kind of ranger you are. And then there's also this is kind of like your, I believe it's your interest. Is that what it's called? No, it's your background. And then your specialty is more specifically what type of ranger you are, and then also some more advanced things that go along with that. So when you build your deck, you take 4 personality cards, 5 background, you choose one of the 2 parts of your, what did I call this again? Your specialty, and then you choose 5 cards from in here. And when I say 5 cards, it's 2 of each of the cards that you take. And then you get 1 outside interest, which can be 1 card from anywhere amongst here, so long as that card doesn't say... Oh, what can it not say on it? That's going to bother me, and I know exactly which card I need to look at to find it. Order of a Sheepdog here is probably one of the better cards in the game, but he specifically has this expert keyword here, and I believe that is the indication that you cannot include this unless you are a shepherd. So anyways, that's kind of the player card side. There's the encounter card side over here. Rather than a chaos token kind of deal, we have these decks like this that are going to be, you shuffle this up, and when you do a test, depending on what stat you're using, you pull a card and you get plus or minus from that, and then an effect happens where everyone in play has to carry out whatever that effect is. And so all of the paths that you're running into, let me just pull out the grasslands, for instance. They have these effects on the bottom of the cards that just tell you what happens when you pull that during a test. So, for instance, if you're at a location with this buck, it says if there's a doe as well, the buck charges at you and you suffer an injury. But then there's other things that happen, like if there's another buck, if you pulled the sun one, you add 2 injury to both of them, and you exhaust them so that they're no longer in your way. So there's this interesting like ecosystem that can happen around you where the bucks are going whoop, 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 and you just kind of go, okay, well, I mean, I'm just going to walk away from them. See you guys. So I think that that's really interesting, and it's a whole lot of fun. When I'm playing on camera, I'm probably going to be using these dice in lieu of these tokens right here. They're a little bit small for my taste. I wish these had been a little tiny bit bigger, I think. I might play them for my first round or 2, but I expect that I'll end up using these. They're just about the exact same color. I got these from Quantum, if you've ever seen that game. The first printing of it, they were covered in this oily residue, and it damaged a couple of the game components. And word of the wise, if you have that, you can just wash all that residue off with dish soap, and these are perfectly fine. So there's 7 of each of these. Really nice dice. Nice and substantial. But now that we've gone through kind of the contents of the box, I want to talk about my ranger that I'm going to be playing for the duration here. Now here's a divider just to divide the ranger decks out. I'm just going to put that right there. And we're going to scooch this off to the side. And we're just going to go through kind of generally what my deck is trying to do. So I have chosen to be an undaunted seeker because I am the explorer specialty. And what that lets me do is I can exhaust this. When I perform a test, I can dodge a card. And dodging a card is basically making it so that that isn't inhibiting me in whatever I'm trying to do. Because you need to, you know, if that buck that we were looking at earlier is in front of you and you try to interact with something else, well, he's kind of in your way. And so you end up fatiguing yourself trying to do tests against things that are like farther away from you than the thing that's closer. And so this lets you dodge one of those things. And then the 4 primary stats in this game are awareness, spirit, fitness, and focus. And I've decided to go with a 3 fitness, 1 focus. And the way that you choose these stats is you have 2 in everything, and then you +1 and -1, right? So you get a 3, 2, 2, 1. And that's what determines kind of the general layout of your character. And all of the cards in the game cost an amount of fitness, awareness, spirit, or focus to play. All of the tests that are possible start with using a fitness, spirit, focus, or awareness from your energy pool to initiate them, at least the common test that you start with. And you also have requirements on the side of cards here based on your stats. So for instance, were I not a 3 fitness character, I would not be able to take Afforded by Nature. It is a 3 fitness, and it obviously costs 3 as well. So, I mean, it would be kind of silly if they let you take that. There's not a whole lot of ways to get bonus energy in this, from what I recall. But obviously, you just don't really get to use it. So let's go through first what my character's personality is. And I've called this character, I believe it was Hadi. First off, Hadi is determined. And this lets you commit a number of, I believe this is the traversal icon. I actually don't remember the name of the icons. Let's actually pull this up right here just so that I can look at the correct names for everything. So what determined lets you do is commit it to a skill test for, this is called exploration. A number of exploration equal to the number of fitness attribute on your card. So if you spend 1 to start the fitness test, you can commit this for another 2 icons. But what I really like about this one is that, like, if you're doing a fitness test, if you're doing a test that requires exploration but doesn't use fitness, then this can possibly be a +3. And I really like the idea of that. That seems like a really big boost, especially on if I, for instance, I had a focus exploration test or a spirit or awareness one a little bit less. But if I ever had a focus exploration test, I'd really be able to crush that. The next thing that Hadi is a versatile. And this one gives him 2 connection, or just 1 to connection. And then before you commit this attribute, you can suffer a fatigue and it gains 1 of each of the rest of them. So this is really primarily the heart, but you can take a fatigue to do anything with it, which is what I really like about that one. And I think it's interesting the way that these like lay out the type of character you're choosing. So determined, versatile, and compassionate. 2 more connection icons on these. And then finally thorough, which is 2 conflict icons on these ones. And the connection ones are the ones that let you interact with beings to place progress on them. And these are what allow you to dodge beings in play. Or, yeah. So then getting into my Traveler cards, I chose Trail Mix. What this does is it comes into play with 2 morsels, and it lets you exhaust it to soothe fatigue equal to the number of fit in your energy pool. That lets you put cards from your fatigue pile, I believe, back into your hand. Either back into your hand or back into your deck. I don't remember which, but again, I'm going to refresh myself on the rules before I get going. And part of the idea with this deck is things that like intentionally take fatigue, or things that intentionally discard cards from my deck rather, or from my hand, and then using cards like this to get them back to be able to use them again. The next thing is another attribute called Strider, and this one is, there aren't a lot of attributes that aren't these personality attributes. This one just comes with 3 exploration icons on it, but you can only commit this attribute when interacting with a trail. And that's really important because not all the locations that you'll be at are trails. And so sometimes these don't do anything, but they're really powerful when they do. So I thought I'd take them and maybe upgrade out of them later once I've completed a couple quests. The next one is Paths We've Roamed Before. It says choose up to 4 total moments or attributes from any number of Ranger discards. Place the chosen cards face down on the top of their Ranger's fatigue stack, excuse me. And this is kind of that same idea of, this plays into that idea of returning the things I've already done. Moments are similar to events, and attributes are similar to skills. So it's basically, your one-time effects can get put back into your fatigue stack. And then if I have my trail mix, I can eat some trail mix and return those back to my, again, I believe it's hand, but I'm not 100% sure. The next is 1 cost Eagle Eye. Scout 3 path cards and then draw a path card. So what this does is it lets you look at the top 3 cards of the encounter deck. The path deck is the encounter deck. And then choose one of them to draw. Now the reason you might do this, and the reason that, it sounds kind of weird to be intentionally drawing a card, but remember what I had mentioned about the Sitka Bucks, where if I have 2 bucks in play and I pull one of those sun icons, they can both exhaust one another and start hitting each other, and it might make it so that I don't have to deal with them at all. So intentionally pulling cards that you know you can deal with or that interact with each other in an interesting way provides a lot of options. And finally, I've got my Iron Wool boots, and this is kind of your bread and butter, I think, of the deck. It's unique, so I think you can only get one of this in play, but it is a gear. And notably, anything that's gear has a number of icons up here. You can only have 5 of this icon. Let me get this a bit closer. 5 of this icon. Oh, sorry. I can't quite tell where my camera is from while I'm sitting down here. But 5 of this icon before you're kind of full on space. And what this does is after you've played an event, you get to soothe the fatigue. So it's kind of just, again, playing into that idea of just getting to use everything. Now I'm getting into my Explorer cards. This is a 1 cost, A Leaf in the Breeze. Response when you traverse, which I believe is this common test, or anything that says traverse in it. I believe that's correct. You can just dodge up to 3 cards. So for 1 cost, instead of needing to dodge things ahead of time or exhaust my Undaunted Seeker, I can just dodge 3 things and walk right past them, basically. Another tech, it's a 2 slot tech, 1 fit to play, and it's got 4 sensors on it. You can exhaust and use a sensor, and when a ranger performs a traverse test, you commit 1 effort, and 1 effort is kind of like a skill value. So basically, it gives you +1 to 4 traversal tests after you've played it until it's emptied. Breathe into it. This is a 2 spirit moment, and it's notably, I think most of these have had a single icon. This one's got 2 icons. It's got the connect and the conflict. When you response when you perform a test, discard any number of cards from your fatigue stack to commit 1 effort to that test for every 2 cards discarded this way. This is a really expensive and niche card, but again, it plays into this fatigue idea I'm trying to do. And you might notice there are 4 different icons for tests. The last one I haven't seen any of in my deck so far is Reason. And my thought is, well, if I get saddled with a really tough Reason deck, I can dump my fatigue stack and commit as much effort as I need to for 2 spirit. So I think this is kind of a last-ditch effort to get that done. I think this is one of the only Reason icons in my deck is on this Afforded by Nature card, which just is a 3 cost fitness, and it just says discard any number of effort from a trail to add an equal number of injury to a being. So what this lets you do is basically, I'm so good at traveling around, I don't really have any way of like knocking off an enemy that's haranguing me, and so this is that answer. Walk with me is a moment. After you succeed at a traverse test, add effort to a being equal to your effort. And effort is, add, what's that again? A progress token to a being equal to your effort. And I believe effort is the terminology for how much you've succeeded by the test. And this is an addition to the test standard effect. So do a traversal and get to add a bunch of progress to an animal as well, assuming it's a friendly animal. And then my outside interest is Pakoto the ferret. And I just love this little guy. He's absolutely adorable. He's one of the few animals in the game. I think there's 3 animals, and this one seems the one that I wanted to use the most. So he has one, what's that again? I forget what the name of that value is, but that's the value that a lot of beings or locations have to tell you how much they fatigue you when you try to work past them. I know that this is relevant for interactions with other cards, but because he's friendly, that doesn't inhibit me. But he only has 1 health. So if he ever takes 1 damage from anything, he gets discarded. But he has an ability here that says exhaust, discard 1 progress from this being to add 1 token to an aid card and 2 progress to another being. Pakoto is unswervingly loyal and adored by all who meet her. So the real trick with this one is that I can basically turn... this is exactly it, right? You do the spirit and heart, which is a connect, right? The spirit and connection, which is a connect test. Connect with the life around you to add a progress to the being equal to your effort. And X is equal to the presence, right? It's presence of the card you're interacting with to a minimum of 1. So if I wanted to place progress on Pakoto so that I could use this ability to discard progress later, I would need to be succeeding. My effort that would be placing the tokens would be succeeding against this value. So I could, spend a spirit, commit a bunch of hearts from my deck, right? And then put that much progress on him and then deal that progress out later. To add a token to an aid card and to other beings. So I do believe I have at least one aid card. Yeah, the trail mix is an aid card. And so part of this, again, this ecosystem of what I'm trying to do is Pakoto lets me refill my trail mix, and also maybe doing my connection with Pakoto and moving one from him to two to someone else makes it easier to connect with things that have a lot more presence. So that's kind of the general overview of the deck I'm going to be playing. Again, there's a big weakness of the deck, which is focus and the reason icons. I just do not have very many of them. So if I run into many focus and reason tests, which one of the primary common tests is that, but it's just one to scout your deck and then draw a card. And so I don't think that this is harming me too much. There's a lot of the time where I'm going to be ending my turn with one focus, or I'm going to just try a focus test, and if I can draw a card off the top of my deck, then I do, and if I don't, then I don't. So that's going to pretty much sum it up there. A little bit busier today. I took the day off to kind of get this all sorted out. A little bit busier today than I wanted to be in terms of the amount of time I get to actually play the game. But I'm really glad to have finally kind of gone through this and announce it and kind of show off what we're going to be doing with the game. So really excited. I hope you can join me with this one. I will be continuing the Scarlet Keys campaign play along at some point, but this is probably going to take priority for a little bit just because it's brand new. And like I said, a brand new game is always full of all of this wonder and this excitement. And this one is certainly no exception in that department. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.